Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, July 5th, 2019, and today we're going to be talking about the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination and the fact that Kamala Harris is officially in second place nationwide based off the RCP average. Now, the reason why I've been waiting to do an analysis video since the Democratic debates, and I know it's felt like a really long time, is because I've yet to see Kamala Harris bump up into second place based off the average. After the debates around, June 27th, she was pretty much steady at 7% nationwide. And I started to realize the national poll effect had not kicked in yet. And then pretty much overnight, she zooms up to second place. I was going to make a video yesterday when she was 0.1 away from Bernie Sanders, but now I've decided to make sure that I focus on the fact that she is now in second place nationwide and Warren is almost up there, leading into third place nationwide, effectively knocking Bernie Sanders down to a possible fourth place nationwide. This is not the only state that this is not the only polling data that we've seen a sudden shift in. If we look at the state of Iowa, a recent poll has come out, USA Today, showing Biden still in a lead, an 8% lead over every other candidate, but Harris has bumped up into second place at 16%, followed by Warren, and Bernie Sanders in double digits in fourth place. We're seeing sort of a similar trend on a nationwide level, though I do think that Bernie Sanders is probably going to rebound into second or third place. Kamala Harris's impact has definitely made a lot of these candidates drop in numbers practically overnight, and there's a good reason for it. If we're looking at the way that these candidates performed on the debate stage, Kamala Harris easily took the spotlight out of both day one and day two. When you're talking about the Democratic debates, you're talking about Kamala Harris. But there's also the argument that Kamala Harris has a troubled past too. She brought up Joe Biden's. There is without a doubt the fact that other Democratic candidates are going to attack Harris at future debates, considering that she has pretty much knocked down every candidate besides Buttigieg, Warren, Sanders, Biden, down to 2% or lower. Before, the other candidates like Beto O'Rourke, Cory Booker, sometimes peaked at 3-4%, sometimes 5%. We're probably not going to see that anytime in the future because a lot of these Democrats have quote-unquote made up their minds. Obviously, things are going to change. But as of right now, it seems like they are getting very warmed up to the idea of supporting people like Harris and Warren and drawing away from the centrist-type Democrat like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the name that everyone knows, but at this point in time, he's at his lowest point he's ever been before or during the time that he's around his campaign. Even before he announced his election campaign, he was still doing better than he is right now. His lowest point was 26.3% nationwide, and now he's at 26% nationwide. That's not too far off, but if you look right after he announced, he peaked at 41.4% out of 20 plus candidates. That was his absolute, highest point, and brought Bernie Sanders down to his lowest point, and now Bernie Sanders is at an even lower point, but Biden is also at his lowest point. Well, the sudden change, of course, comes from Kamala Harris. You can practically see her skyrocket. In the past 14 days, you can see on the 3-month map, Harris has shot up into the second place spot, and she's now at 15.5%. That's around what Bernie Sanders has been getting up through the debates, and that's a pretty good sign for Kamala Harris. A lot of people are going to start attacking her now. She is that name candidate that everyone knows. She was the most Googled candidate after the second Democratic presidential debate, and it makes sense. She had a very, very good line against Joe Biden, something that questioned his support with the African American community that was head over heels for Joe Biden. He was getting 50% of the African American vote in a pool of over 23 candidates. That is insane. The fact that a Democratic candidate, could take 1 in 2 voters when there are 20 plus other candidates running definitely says something about the support for them. And Joe Biden definitely had the hold on the African American vote because of people like Barack Obama being the vice president under the first African American president in United States history. Definitely helped with his numbers and is mainly the reason why his numbers are staying as high as they are now. And I do expect Biden's numbers to drop a little bit more, and I do expect Kamala Harris to go up a little bit more depending on her future debate performance, possibly in about less than a month, end of July on the CNN debates. But I think those should hold some interesting results. Biden is definitely going to have to fight the way to fight back. A number of other Democrats are going to attack Biden and Harris as well because that's an extremely effective tearing down one person to bring up your numbers. I mean, if we look, Biden, sure, he was at a steady 32%, and then we see the dip. It was not a good dip for Joe Biden, and it was a sudden increase for Kamala Harris. So we know where all those sudden loss of Biden support went to. went to Kamala Harris. Didn't go to Sanders. It didn't go to Warren. Warren increased on her own, which I think is pretty interesting. This Democratic whole turntable, it seems like a lot of these Sanders supporters are warming up to the idea of voting for Elizabeth Warren. They may not be supporting Sanders. They may not be supporting Harris. They may not be supporting Biden. But Warren is also that progressive alternative to the centrist type thinking. And I do think that people like Warren are going to end up succeeding in the Democratic primary. I don't know about winning it. But as of right now, Warren is doing pretty well. Sanders is not doing too well. After the debates, his numbers pretty much dropped, but also lack of enthusiasm. He didn't have his best A game on when we were talking about the debates. He didn't seem like he was on top of everything. The real shining stars were definitely Kamala Harris. I saw a number of political analysts saying how Joe Biden actually was one of the winners of the debates. I agree and disagree with that statement, considering that one section where Kamala Harris called him out that really, really hurt his numbers nationwide, but it could have been worse. A lot of people expected Biden to dip into second, third, even fourth place after the first debate. Not true. I mean, he's holding on. I wouldn't say holding on strong because it looks like he's having a steady decline, but there is a real possibility that he does hold on to his first place lead for a little bit. If we look at the most recent polls, we actually have a new general election poll that actually shows Biden only ahead of Trump by 4%, and it is by Rasmussen Report, so I am a little hesitant as to focusing on it too much because all the other polls show Biden with double-digit leads, but this is the only one we've seen since after the debates. Biden +4, that's still a pretty good lead for a candidate that just pretty much got knocked in terms of Democratic support, but again, it could be better. If we're looking at this, a Biden +4, Biden +11 isn't the worst thing. But if we're looking at it, he really should be having higher numbers at this point in time. But generally, I do think that Joe Biden is going to do pretty well in the Democratic primary. Harris definitely has had her little bump. We saw it with people like Carly Fiorina back in 2016. If you look at a couple of other Democrats in Democratic history and Republican nomination history, after the debates, one candidate typically surges up to second and possibly goes back down. We'll see with Kamala Harris. She was actually a candidate that actually could hold on to a number of voters. She does have a pretty troubling past, especially amongst Democratic support. Her past in terms of supporting trans inmates, or if we're looking at her criminal justice record, or if we're talking about immigration, a lot of things that the Democrats necessarily agree with, Kamala Harris's history has shown that she disagrees with that. And I think that's something that's definitely going to be brought up by, let's say, Sanders, Warren, Buttigieg, O'Rourke, those top candidates at the next debate. Same thing how Harris discussed how, as a person of color, she felt offended by Biden's whole fiasco with the government-issued or federally issued busing. Buttigieg could also bring up LGBT rights in terms of how Harris has had a history on that. A lot of those things really could tear her down as well. So we could see possibly an exact, way that what she did to Biden, we could see happen to Harris pretty easily. But all of these candidates have a pretty troubled past. I think that bringing it up at every single debate isn't doing too many people too much good. A lot of these candidates really need to start focusing on policy because, to be honest, the white working class of America doesn't want to see a catfight at the Democratic debates. That's not what they tuned in to watch for. And Donald Trump, to be honest, is looking like a more presidential candidate when we're looking at a Democratic field where people are talking over each other and things like that. Obviously, that's bound to happen. It happened in 2016 in the Republican debates. But the Democratic Party's forefront issue is that Donald Trump is still not presidential after being in office for 3 years, going on 4. Seeing Democrats behave in this way on a national level, on a nationally televised debate, is not a good look for them either. And obviously, people are going to argue at debates. People are going to throw a lot of things around. I just don't think that this is the best look for the Democratic Party. As of right now, I'm still hedging my bets on a Joe Biden victory in the Democratic primary, just based off his support in these early voting states and the momentum that he can build up. I mean, if we're looking at South Carolina, Biden plus 27.5. I do expect Harris to do a little bit better here, but still, I think that he's going to hold on to that one. Iowa, we'll see. New Hampshire, Biden plus 13. If Sanders and Warren, are splitting the support there, that's not a good sign. If they were combined in this most recent poll from CBS News, Sanders and Warren would be leading if they were combined into one candidate. We go over to Nevada. Biden plus 13 as well. I think that's pretty interesting. I think Harris is going to have a little bit more of an edge than she did in the past, only because she's from California and she will be able to appeal to those type of voters. But these early voting states are definitely showing good news for Joe Biden. I mean, even in the state of California, Harris, although this is her home state, Biden leads by 6.5% on average. We'll see more polling data after the, debate effect has taken place. Even though the debates have occurred, a lot of these polling numbers have not been taken after the first and second Democratic presidential election debates. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.